Hello. You've probably heard of me. Out of all the Bible characters, I'm pretty popular. Yeah, there's a VeggieTales story about me, and I even star in a Hollywood movie. And I'm even said to be the most humble man on the face of the earth. Just ignore the fact that I wrote that in one of my books. I'm Moses, and there's a lot to my life, and I don't have a whole lot of time, so I'll have to skip over some details, and bear with me. But the beginning of my story starts in Exodus chapter 2. I was born a Hebrew, but during that time, Pharaoh decided that all the Hebrew baby boys needed to be killed. So my mother hid me for as long as she could. And then when she couldn't hide me anymore, she decided to put me in a basket and hide me in the reeds among the Nile River. She thought I would be safer that way. Well, Mama knows best, and Pharaoh's daughter found me, and she decided that she wanted to raise me in the palace of Pharaoh. So I was raised among the Egyptians. I learned their ways. I observed their customs. I dressed like an Egyptian. I lived a life of luxury, and I watched them worship their gods. But I knew that something was always missing. I knew deep down that that is not where I belonged. And I watched as the Jews would labor day in and day out in the hot Egyptian sun. I watched as they would have open wounds and the sun scorched their skin and the sand was in their eyes and the guards would violently beat them every single day. Those were my brothers. Those were my people, enslaved. I lived a pretty quiet life in the palace. I was 40 years old at this time, and what did I have to say for my life? But one day, I found myself outside watching these men hard at work, and then I saw something that would forever change my life. An Egyptian guard was violently beating one of the Hebrews. Something inside me burst. Anger boiled up inside. Injustice. I thought, I'll be a hero. And so while I thought no one was looking, I struck down that Egyptian man. I dragged his body and I hid him in the sand. I felt like a hero in that moment. Yes, I thought justice had been served. The next day, I saw these two Hebrew guys fighting, and I just didn't get it. Why would they do that? So I asked them, why are you hitting your fellow Hebrew? One of them responded and said to me, who made you ruler and judge over us? Are you thinking of killing me just as you killed that Egyptian? They knew. How do they know? I felt afraid in that moment, maybe even a little ashamed, so much for being a hero, so much for helping the Hebrews. And word began to spread and the Pharaoh found out. He tried to kill me, but I must have had some life still worth living because somehow I was able to escape and flee to Midian. I thought my life was over. So much for being rescued out of the river, so much for growing up in the Pharaoh's palace. One day, while I was in Midian, I went and I sat by a well, and then all of a sudden, these 7 girls came along, and they all turned out to be sisters, and they came to draw water to feed their fathers, or to give drink to their father's flocks. But all of a sudden, these rude shepherds came along, and they decided to drive all of them away, and so I thought, no, not again. I'll be the hero this time. I'll stand for justice. I've seen too much injustice in my life. I will rescue them. And I did. And I watered their flock for them. Later that day, the father of their sisters invited me over to come and stay and eat with them. And that is how I met my beautiful wife, Zipporah. She was one of those 7 sisters that day, and her father had given her to me in marriage. And so Zipporah and I went about our lives. We ended up having our first son, Gershom. For his name describes how I felt in those times. I've become a foreigner in a foreign land, not able to be raised in the home I was born in. And in the only home I ever knew, the Pharaoh, my adoptive grandfather, wanted to kill me. Talk about a dysfunctional family. Surely we would be on that Jerry Springer show or whatever you guys watch. A Hebrew who could not only fit in among the Egyptians, maybe that's understandable, but a Hebrew who couldn't even fit in among the Hebrews? I'll just live my life as a foreigner, I thought. During those years in Midian, the king of Egypt died. But along the way, the Israelites, my dear brothers and sisters, who wanted nothing to do with me, suffered and groaned in their slavery. They cried and cried, but their cry for help would not go unheard. No, God saw them in their wretched condition of slavery, and he heard their cry for help. And God would come to remember his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. And God looked upon the Israelites, the precious children of God, enslaved, and he became concerned for them. The next part of my life is found in Exodus 3 through 4. I am now 80 years old. But what was I to do? The Israelites wanted nothing to do with me, so I went about my life in Midian. One day I was just going about my daily tasks and caring for my father-in-law's flock. I laugh looking back on that day now. I was leading his flock of sheep to the far side of the wilderness. Little did I know that was just what was about to take place that day would result in me leading the children of God through the wilderness. Let me tell you, friends, nothing is wasted, not even caring for your in-laws' sheep. But on that day, after leading my father-in-law's flock through the wilderness, I came to Horeb, the mountain of God. I was simply watching over the sheep, but off in the distance, I saw the strangest sight. There was a bush on fire, and it wasn't burning up, so I thought to myself, I'll go over there and I'll see this strange sight. Why is this bush not burning up? I got closer and closer to the bush. I had never seen anything so seemingly miraculous. And then, all of a sudden, I heard my name by a voice that sounded also familiar, but I knew I'd never heard it before. Moses. Moses. Immediately, the only words that I could utter were, "Here I am." This was the voice of God. He began to speak again, his voice so fearfully beautiful. "Do not come any closer," God said. "Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy ground." Then he said, "I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob." An incredible reverence and fear came over me. What would you do? I mean, this was God speaking. I knew better than to look at God, and so he was far too powerful and awesome, so I hid my face afraid. It was then that God would tell me that he had seen the misery of my people, the Israelites in Egypt, that he heard them crying out because of their slave drivers, and he was concerned with their suffering. For God had come down to rescue them and lead them to the land flowing with milk and honey. And it was the words that God would say next that would begin an incredible journey of my life. God said to me, "So now go. I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt." What? Me? Moses? No. Surely God had the wrong guy for the job. And so I said, Who am I? Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? God reassured me with these words, "I will be with you, and this will be the sign to you that it is I who have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you will worship God on this mountain." And so the Lord gave me much instruction of how all of this would unfold. I would have to go before the Israelites and convince them that God had chosen me to lead them out of their bondage. This terrified me, for I could never speak well, and God wanted me to speak to those who despised me. And so I said to the Lord, "Pardon your servant, Lord. I've never been eloquent, neither in the past nor since now. When you're speaking to your servant, I'm slow to speech and tongue." Relentlessly, the Lord challenged me. Who gave humans their mouths? Who makes them deaf or mute? Who gives them sight or makes them blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go, and I will help you speak, and I will teach you what to say. I still was unconvinced that I was the right person for this. So I did something that I don't recommend doing, and I said, "Pardon your servant, Lord. Send someone else." I was refusing and questioning the authority of the all-knowing God who when he chooses someone for a task, he doesn't make mistakes. And so understandably, the Lord got angry with me. He ended up giving me all that I needed and the help of my brother to go and speak in Egypt. But why do we do that? Why do we question God when he calls us to do something? As if he doesn't know us. As if he didn't create us. As if he doesn't know what we are and aren't capable of. As if he didn't make the hands, the feet, and the voice that he wants us to use for him. As if he is unaware of the mistakes that we've made. As if he's unaware of what people think of us. Why do we think he would instruct us to do something for him that we couldn't actually do? Why do we think he would abandon us or not help us in completing a task he wants to see accomplished? And so in Exodus 6, I returned to Egypt. I reported to the Israelites what God had said to me and that he wanted to set them free, but they were too discouraged already to believe me. And so the Lord told me, Moses, a man not that great at talking, to go and speak to Pharaoh and tell him to let the Israelites go out of Egypt. So I said to the Lord, if the Israelites will not listen to me, why would Pharaoh listen to me? I have faltering lips. There I was again, questioning God's ability to follow through because of my own insecurities and shortcomings. And you know what God said to me? He said, I am the Lord. Tell Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, everything I've told you. When God states who he is, you think that I would listen to him, that he is the Lord and I am not. You'd think I'd listen, but no, I kept questioning God, and I asked him, since I speak with faltering lips, why would Pharaoh listen to me? Well, friends, in Exodus 7 through 14, I finally mustered up the courage to go before Pharaoh. And God, he followed through. Go figure. He gave me the help of my brother Aaron, and God, he was faithful. It was not by my power, but his. He sent the plagues among the Egyptians. He struck down the Egyptians at Passover, all while giving us the instructions we needed to stay safe. God changed Pharaoh's heart, and by the power of God, the Israelites were freed out of the land of Egypt. In that moment, it didn't matter how great of a speaker I was. It made no difference, but God made all the difference. And friends, you know the rest of my story, so I won't go into all of the details. You can read more of it throughout Exodus. But it's an amazing story, isn't it? Not because of me, but all because of God and his faithfulness. It was difficult, yes. And to be honest, those Israelites drove me crazy. But God, he split the sea so we could walk right through it. He miraculously provided food and water for us in the desert. And yes, those Israelites still drove me crazy, but God, he encouraged me. He guided me. He spoke to me face to face as one speaks to a friend. He shone upon my face. And still, I laugh. Looking back at it now, I can't resent those 40 years I spent in the desert until I was 80 years old, questioning the purpose of my life. Because little did I know that it was preparing me for the next 40 years of leading others through the desert. This time, guiding the children of God. So if there's anything that you can take from my story, this is what I want you to know. If you're going through something in this life, if you're going through the desert, don't resent it. Allow God to teach you in the desert place so then you can lead others through it. And when he commands you to do that, don't question him. I can assure you, he will provide. He'll be faithful. And lastly, be obedient. as you may know, I never got to step foot in the promised land because I had a moment where I made it all about me. Don't do that. It's always all about God. I never could have gotten this far without him. I was a baby in a basket in a river. I was a man who couldn't speak well, but God used me. He can use you too. Don't question him on that.
Good job. Good job, Rebecca. It's 15 minutes, 22 seconds, so perfect. And we'll give you a few minutes to finish up your sheets, and we'll give everybody all feedback at the end of the time today. So.
If I stuttered, it was because I'm Moses.
You ready, Jeff?
Let's do this.